All right. Well, I want to welcome you to kind of our new series that we're doing for new residents of Sarasota County. This one focuses on recycling, but all the faculty within our extension office are doing something related to their area of expertise for new residents that come to our area. A lot of people who come, they have different questions about what I do, which is waste reduction and recycling, because it is different in different parts of the country. So I just want to kind of take you through that a little bit today and hopefully sort through some of the confusion that we have. Just to give you a little background on this, my name is Randall Penn. I'm the waste reduction agent at the Sarasota County Extension. Pictured here are some of our different programs that we have, and those range from the Master Gardener program to 4-H, to Sea Grant and even Green Business Partnership programs. We're located off of Clark Road, just east of 75 at Twin Lakes Park back there. And, we do classes there as well as out into the community and online as well. So here's going to be our format for today. I have this kind of life cycle of recycling. And it's what kind of happens from the start of recycling that we do all the way to the end. And we're going to focus on, residential programs, which is what we participate in as homeowners and perhaps businesses as well. We'll look at the haulers who pick up that recycling, where it goes, who processes and sorts that. And then we'll touch maybe a little bit on kind of the manufacturing plants. And what I mean is those are the places that take the recycling that's been separated and sorted and make it into new products. So let's start there with these kind of residential programs. To kind of give you a little background on the state of Florida, back in 2008, they passed a bill, House Bill 7135, that put on the books that each county was to try to achieve a 75% recycling rate by the year 2020. Now, obviously, we're a few years past that rate, 2020 right now, and the state has kind of leveled off around a 50% recycling rate. And what I mean by that is half of the material is ending up in landfills and the other half is being repurposed or recycling. That may not sound like a success story, but in a way it is, in the sense that when we started that in 2008, the recycling was down in the teens. So think, 10%, 12%, and it really varied by location. There weren't a lot of programs in place. So what this helped to do was kind of drive the infrastructure. It got, government solid waste departments to start doing curbside collections and tracking this and really started to build a lot of that sort of stuff up. Sarasota County is right along that line of 50%, and we've kind of hovered there for a couple years now. It either goes up a couple percent or down, but right around that 50% line, right in line with what's going on around the state. This is kind of a historical look at some of the things that we recycle here, from paperboard, glass, plastics, yard waste, and even some of the batteries that we have. And you can see in the 60s, 70s, and then even in the 80s, there weren't a lot of programs in place to recycle. But as we went through each decade, all the way up to 2020, the program started to improve. So if you look at the paper and cardboard at the top, it was really low at the beginning, and now nearly 2/3 of that gets recycled and repurposed. So paper is one of those things that's been doing really, really well from a recycling standpoint. We have glass on there, but the one that always kind of everyone ends up talking about in my classes is this right here, the plastics. Only about 8% of the plastics are being recycled into new products across the country. And it's kind of been stuck there. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and a lot of reasons why there's such a challenge with the recycling of the plastics. And I do a whole nother course related to just plastics, because it is such a unique issue on its own. So look for that down the road if you want to. I will point out on the bottom is lead acid batteries. And you can see the percentage there is nearly 100%. And that's because there's a financial incentive for that. Think about your car battery. When you take it back and get it replaced, you get a core fee for that, maybe $10, $15, something like that. So it incentivizes people to bring that back because there's a monetary thing approach to it. I wanted to touch on these recycling rates and what they are and how they calculate them. And I'll take you through it real quick, and then I'll show you some of what's going around the state and ultimately Sarasota County. So there's three categories that they report on here in Sarasota. The first is known as standard recycling, and that's what we think of when we recycle. We collect our things in our home, we put them into our recycling bin, we put them out at the curb. How much of that versus how much goes into the landfill back and forth between those is going to be a percentage, and that'll be the standard rate. Maybe half goes to recycling and half will go into the landfill. But then they add in another component known as traditional recycling. And this is kind of an extra item that they use out at the landfill that you get a little bit of a credit for as a county. And this can be a yard waste or crushed aggregate concrete or crushed glass. It's a real fine product that they use to cover up landfills and just kind of mitigate a lot of the excess kind of things going up in the air. And they get maybe a percent or two thrown in there as well. And then lastly, the total recycling rate, which is what counties promote. This also includes the standard traditional rate there, but it adds in renewable energy credits. So if you're creating some sort of waste to energy type program, methane capture, burning of your trash, that gets included in the recycling as well. So kind of an unusual system here in the state of Florida. And so I'll show you a couple of these, and hopefully it'll make sense. So this is Sarasota County. This is what we report, or the county reports solid waste every year. And they did 849,000 tons of garbage went to the landfill. So they're doing almost 900,000 tons annually into our landfill. So it's a lot. We're not burning any of the waste there. We don't have a waste to energy plant, but we recycle 767,000 tons. So almost half of that amount is being recycled. It's a single stream process, meaning it goes into one cart out at the curbside. So when they factor our rate together, our standard and some of that landfill cover, it comes out about 47.5%. We also get a renewable energy credit because the landfill that's down off Knights Trail in the Venice-Nokomis area has a methane capture system. So the closed area of the landfill is capturing that methane that's emitting. It gets cooled, it gets run through generators, and it feeds energy back into the grid. And they usually get a percent or two a year, but it's usually only a couple percent for Sarasota. So it makes our rate kind of tick up to about that 49, 50% because of that. I like to point out real quick, Hillsborough County, which is Tampa. If you look kind of in the middle there, they have a traditional recycling rate around that 49%, just like we do. But they get a huge renewable energy credit, and it's marked there in the orange on the chart there, but it's 23%. And that's burning of trash and recyclable material. They do a lot of that up in Hillsborough and Pinellas County. And so that counts into that recycling rate. One of the areas that has challenges with this right now is Miami-Dade County, which is down in, Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, very large population areas. I underline their recycling rate is barely 20% down there, so not good. They're having a lot of challenges getting things sorted correctly, a lot of contamination for multiple reasons, but mixed use housing, language barrier, and just lots of people. They burn a significant amount as well, so that bumps them up to about 50% recycling rate. So if you compare their 50% to Sarasota's 50%, we're doing more of that traditional standard kind of recycling that you think of when we go curbside. So not all recycling rates are reported equally is kind of what I want to point out. Another thing I look at is a lot of the rural counties here, and IFAS is pretty heavily involved in different programs out there. These are out in like the Bend of Florida and more remote areas. They don't have curbside pickup in most of these areas. Some people even just burn trash in their backyard and things like that. Very low recycling rate, just 5 or 6%. And so, they have a different type system set up, and we're trying to work with those governments there to get drop-off places and things like that. But it's difficult because they're They're far away from everything, and it costs a lot to move that stuff around. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. I just kind of wanted to paint that picture that it's not always the number. There's a lot more behind that. So I'm going to assume that you guys are pretty new residents to Sarasota because of the title of this. And a few years ago, we introduced a single stream recycling program. The county invested in new carts that we rolled out to people. We provided a lot of education on what goes where and the right things to put in. And this is a copy of the chart of what you can put in and what you can't that accompanied that that rollout of that project. I'm going to go into this a little bit more in detail at the end, but you can see cans, cartons, glass, paper, plastic. These are all accepted in what we call single stream recycling. So curbside, you have your landfill cart or trash cans in this case, and then you'll have a recycling roll cart that you can use as well. So I'll go into some of those challenging items here shortly, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about the program that we have in place. The second thing that we want to look at is the haulers here. So this is what drove a lot of that single stream recycling change. Previously, we had two bins, which is pictured kind of in the bottom corner there. We had one small bin for recycling of commingled plastic, glass, tin cans, things like that, and one for the paper. But all these type of governments in larger areas seem to be trending more to that all-in-one cart for your recycling. And Sarasota is no different from a lot of places around the region that have already started to do this. Here's kind of a chart that shows the trends in this. If you look back in the 90s, there were only a handful of single stream collection facilities. And by 2020, nearly 75% of the recycling around the country is now done by that single cart. And then also you can see the dual stream programs have dropped as well. Used to have a lot of those, and it's certainly starting to tear off. And there's a number of reasons for that. The first thing, though, is with single stream recycling, there are challenges, and there are some issues associated with it. There can be a lot of contamination. There can be a lot of misuse of the products and things getting in the wrong way. But there are also benefits that go into this as well. Pictured here is Hillsborough County. That's what they have right now. They have a two-cart system, and the Sarasota County is going to be moving to that shortly. It's going to be coming in the next year here. They're starting to roll out some of the education on the trash pickup side right now. So the haulers, they want to do it this way. They do that for a number of reasons. When the truck pulls down the street, they can reach an arm out off the truck and just dump it into the truck very easily. Before that, they had to kind of get out of the truck or have two people, and one would have to dump in the smaller bins. It reduces time. It's more efficient. It's more effective, right? And it just reduced costs for the haulers. The other thing is, by having the single stream, it's been shown that you get a lot more material collected. Along that, though, is the contamination can increase. So the haulers pick it up from us curbside, and they take it to a processing plant that separates it. And so this is what one of the processors is known at in Sarasota. It was called single stream recycling. They just got sold to a new place, and I'll bring it in here in a second and show you the website. But at this facility, they want more, they get more items in, they get more material, and the recycling rate increases. But along that, so does the contamination. I'm going to kind of drag this in. So if you want to, on your own, you can look up this recycling company here. Go to the top here. And I think they have the different offices. If you click the locations, we're going to go down here to Sarasota. And this is the facility that's here in Sarasota. And they have these optical scanning machines. You can see them there. They have AMP on them. And as the material goes through there, there's robotics that separate out material. And they've got about 15 of these that it runs through. So one will start to pull out the plastic films. One will start to pull out metal cans. One will start to separate out the different paper and things like that. And it runs through really, really cool. And so down, I believe on here, here's the materials they accept: paper, cardboard, plastic, aluminum cans, tin cans, glasses and bottles, all sorts of cartons and whatnot. They do tours now. That might be something that we could look into in the future, schedule that and go out and kind of look at it. But you kind of get the idea as what they go through with that company. It's one of the best ones that I've seen as far as having the ability to separate out that material. Really, really good. So I mentioned some of these negative impacts of single stream already, but really the biggest one is that they have more contamination. They get a lot more rejected material. This is a common picture you'll see with people in your neighborhood, right? With a lot of the overpacked items and wrong items in that. I have one right down the road for me, a couple down, and it's an Airbnb. They rent it out, and it always looks like this. And so, if you have too many people in your street or region and that truck picks all that up and it's the wrong items, it can lead to more contamination as you go through. I think one of the things I always hear about recycling is, I don't need to recycle. It ends up in the landfill anyway. And there is a certain amount of truth to that, but it's not necessarily true here in Sarasota County. This is a look at what happened when we introduced the single stream program within the first year. We saw a 26% increase in recyclable materials, which is great. If that had gone down, we would have had kind of a big problem, especially with that kind of investment. But along with that, we also saw that the contamination went up. So they got a net increase of about 16% renewables. And so that's pretty good. That's below the national average. The average is about 25% when they get it at the processing places. So we're definitely doing better than that. And there's a consulting company that comes in and tracks all this type of stuff and looks at, the different materials. And you can see in the chart, I know it's kind of small there, but the blue is all the paper. They're able to separate that pretty easily. And then down at the bottom, you're looking at all the plastic number ones and number two bottles, aluminum cans, and even glass containers. So I mentioned glass because not everywhere around the country is doing glass recycling. I'm seeing it starting to get pulled out of various places all across the country. Sarasota is a place that still takes glass containers. So after your recycling goes to that single stream place and gets separated, the items that are glass then go to another facility. And this facility is called Strategic Materials Incorporated. And they accept all sorts of glass. You think of from colored bottles, beer bottles, green bottles, amber bottles, automotive glass, windows, windshields, you name it. And they have a very sophisticated way to use robotics and AI to separate that out as well. The things they don't take, so you don't want to put these in your curbside bin, are going to be your computer monitors and televisions, light bulbs, mirrors, any sort of mirrors. I know a lot of people put those in their recycling bins. And then ceramics, the ceramic plates and bowls and cups and wares, those can cause some major problems in the recycling kind of process just because they're so dense and heavy, and they really can mess up the machinery pretty good. But just so you know, we do take glass containers there, and it's a way to kind of improve the overall recycling rate of our area. So just to kind of go back to the life cycle, we have the items we put out by ourselves or even businesses. They get picked up by the hauler. It's moved to the processor. At the processor, I asked them when we did a tour there, how much of the recyclables you receive actually get recycled, right? Because that's kind of what people kind of have that misconception about. They told me it's about 80%. That means 20% of that stuff that they get they just can't recycle it. And that's either wrong items or it's just contaminated. And that usually will end up going almost always into the landfill. So there is a percentage of that that doesn't make it, but 80% is very high. Places like Miami-Dade I talked about, it can be lower in the 50% range. So they have a really, really sophisticated process here in Sarasota. Of that 80% that makes it to the next manufacturing area, how much of this material becomes a new product, right? That's a really hard number to know. And obviously it's going to drop off a little bit more. You know, how much of that plastic material will go into new products or how much of that glass gets gone. So it does get kind of reduced a little bit. But for the most part, you know, your recycling is being passed all the way through and it's attempted to be made into new products. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. All right, just to kind of go back to the items, because I think there's a lot of confusion on what should go where and what needs to be put in your bin and what should go in another bin in the trash or maybe perhaps another location. So here's that chart that I showed earlier. We do take cans here, aluminum cans, steel cans. The key is rinse it out as best you can and put it into your bin. All right. Don't compact it into small pieces or anything like that or make it too small. It's okay to just leave it as a full can. The next thing is to look at is the cartons. And they do accept those kind of paper, waxy fiber board containers and they're, you know, think dairy creamers or orange juice, chicken stock kind of comes in those. So those are in there as well. The main thing is to make sure they're empty, give it a quick rinse, and then go ahead and put the cap back on. They want the caps back on these materials. The next is glass. Empty and rinse the glass and replace the caps. That'll get through. And then paper, all sorts of mixed paper is accepted. Mixed paper, newspaper, magazines, cardboard, flattened boxes, etc. Even your junk mail that has the little window on there, you can put that in there. I know some people like to pull that little piece off. I'm told that's not necessarily necessary, but if you want to take that extra step, you certainly can. And then the fifth item listed there is plastics. In Sarasota County, we accept plastics 1 through 7, with the exception of number 6, which is the polystyrene. From the homeowner side of thing, that's probably going to be number 1 plastics, which are going to be like a plastic bottle. Think of a water bottle. Number 2 plastics, which are going to be the harder caps. So if you get a Gatorade bottle, that cap's a harder high density plastic, they call it. That's a very valuable recyclable plastic. And the third one we'll probably run into most is a number 5, which are kind of the packaging trays, those black trays you see and things like that. Those are kind of number 5s. The key is rinse it out, replace the caps, and try to put it in there as clean as you can. We don't want a lot of food waste and things like that. The areas where we see mistakes and things go wrong is people leave it inside plastic bags when they throw it in their bin. So we don't want your recyclables in plastic bags. We don't want any sort of plastic bags or films or Amazon packaging or any of that sort of bubble wrap and things like that. We want to keep that out of our curbside bins. No food, no pizza boxes, no diapers, and no tanglers. Apparently, they get lots of diapers that get thrown away in there. People think they're plastic, I guess. The tanglers are the big problem. Hoses, wires, different kind of chains and electronic cords and things like that. That causes problems with the machinery that they have. So just to kind of list some of the big common items that go in the wrong place. Number 1 is batteries. Batteries do not go in your curbside recycling bins. If you want to recycle your batteries, you can take them to some of the chemical drop-off places here in the county. And I have them listed on the next thing, but they're at the end of Bee Ridge Road, and there's one down in Venice and then out at the landfill. So you can capture some of those household items there. They will not accept just the traditional AA, AAA batteries there, though. Nobody really recycles those, and those are going to end up as the trash. Lithium batteries, other sorts of batteries, computer batteries, things like that. They want those. Those they can turn into new products, the recyclable stuff, but not so much just the basic double AAAs. Styrofoam. Styrofoam cannot be recycled curbside, but there are ways to kind of capture that and collect that in a separate kind of container. And you can take those back to a big box store or Publix when you walk in. They have kind of at the grocery stores that those areas for styrofoam trays and egg cartons and things like that. The other thing you can do is try to eliminate purchasing some of that stuff, but it's hard to do. So they will accept those at a Publix or something like that. Plastic wraps are always an issue with the recycling. Please try to leave those out of your curbside recycling. I have a big bag. I keep all that stuff in next to my recycling. And when it gets pretty big, I take it back to the store when I go get groceries and I stuff it in the little container as I walk in. They have a system to take that to another location that's able to shred those plastics apart. I mentioned wires, hoses, clothes hangers, no. And then pizza boxes. I was told by the recycling facility they can do pizza boxes as long as they're not too soiled. So if you can kind of tear off any place with cheese or food on them or oil, you can recycle the remainder of that pizza box as long as it's not too contaminated. Here are the list of the chemical drop-off places. As a Sarasota County resident, you can take any of your household items that can't be recycled curbside. You can kind of capture that and you can take them to these facilities. So think of all your car waxes, your cleaners. Maybe you have motor oil or light bulbs, various types of electronics, household electronics. They will take those things there at these three locations. And you can go to their county website and find those there. Here's kind of a list of those items they accept at the drop-off. And this is free for residents. It's super easy. Once you have a box of that stuff, put it into a little tub, take it out there. They'll take it off your hands super easy, and you'll be so happy you did it. It's super easy to do. And it's from automotive products and chemicals, cleaners, fertilizers, fire extinguishers, gasoline, different kinds of solvents. So if you're cleaning out a garage, this is where you want to take all those types of items. And if they're not able to take the item, they usually will accept it and they'll kind of put it into where it needs to go. It's a great service that the county offers as it relates to that. Packaging material, bubble wrap, pouches, plastic bags, etc. On those bubble wraps, you'll see the triangle. It usually is a number 2 or number 5. It'll say recyclable. It is recyclable, but not in your curbside collection bins. Take those in a separate type of place. You can take them back to, I believe, Office Depot and UPS stores, Publix as well. So there are some places you can take a lot of those plastic films and stuff like that. And that's a great way to kind of go above and beyond. The other thing is just don't get take reusable bags. Try to limit that. Maybe you can reuse them as well. Sometimes I have them and use them for, when I walk my dogs and things like that. So I mentioned some of these solutions at home to be more sustainable. Take your bags with you. I know we all forget to do that from time to time, but that's a good way to do it. If you order food online, you can kind of click a little button on the app and say, I don't need utensils if you're at home. That eliminates a lot of that single-use plastic that you get that ends up in the landfill. Some other solutions, at the office, if you have a business, you can look to become a green business partner through Sarasota County. Just kind of submit an application. They can help you implement some of these type of programs, from recycling to reducing energy and water conservation. Things that you can do at the office is try to use reusable wares. If you have events, try to do compostable products as opposed to single-use plastic, and things like that. So always look for little opportunities to reduce the impacts of your various event that you do. In my office, I've created a station kind of similar to the one pictured, with 3 additional items beyond the normal recycling. And those are plastic bags and wraps. We do electronics. And then I also capture the printer, toners, and inks. And Xerox actually sends me a free box that I keep. And when I have enough of those, I pack them in the box and UPS takes it away, and it costs us nothing to do that. Super easy thing to do. And it just kind of helps make the office more efficient and effective, and just a greener, safe, nice, safer, cleaner place to operate. I want to mention that Extension is, an equal opportunity institution. We are here to, be a community education hub. If you know anybody who has any sort of limitations, mobility, language, etc., and they hesitate to come out to one of our classes, let us know and we will accommodate. We want to include everybody in our educational programs. And with that, that's all I have today about introducing you to some of the recycling programs that we have across Sarasota County. If you have any questions or want to reach out to me, my email is rpen@ufl.edu. And I thank you for coming in today.